How's everybody doing today? Hope y'all doing well. I appreciate y'all's time on this Sunday afternoon coming up to spend some time with the fam in the locker room. This series is aimed at creating a comfortable and safe space for people to come together and really learn as student athletes within the Black community and really grow our knowledge around topics that are very important to all of us. And tonight, Josh and I will be taking you down the topic of financial literacy and what that means as a student athlete. So, really appreciate y'all's time. Just know this is meant to be very engaging. Please ask questions. Please engage with us, and it'll make it better for us all, even if you don't know that much. We all know that we're all constantly learning, gaining, and growing. So this is a space for you to really grow. And the goal at the end of the day is for you to leave here and have something that you can be able to um, put into your everyday life starting today and feel like a much better prepared human being. So with that being said, we're going to start off with some introductions. Josh.
Thank you, Christian. You did a great little intro. But yeah, quick introduction. My name is Josh Emmanuel, former football player from Texas State University. Um, I serve on the NCAA Division One Board of Directors. I was in SAC for a long time. That's what led to me there. And I currently work now as a career coach for athletes to careers. And essentially, I work with athletic administration and athletes and help athletes find out what career they want to get into after they're done playing their sport. And that goes into, professional development as well, resume building, interview prep, and then we connect them with companies that hire athletes. So that's a little bit about me, man. And yeah, Christian.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My name is Christian Roy. I am a Duke graduate, class of 23. I also played football there, defensive tackle. I was like 330. I'm getting down on weight though, 'cause we're done with it. So I'm glad
Yeah.
to be getting down. But my passion is around financial literacy, and I just love being able to engage that gap. I find that um, so I study political science with a concentration in political finance. And I feel like through my findings, I was really engaged with a racial wealth gap, and especially within the Black and white communities. And I found that the gap is strengthened by knowledge, and that knowledge is so powerful. That knowledge that takes 5 minutes to learn is the difference between a household that is 200 or $200,000 as opposed to one that is 1 million. So I've been really engaged in doing a lot of workshops throughout my time at Duke, and have, as you can see, continued amongst that path and looking for a career in wealth management. So I'm really excited to do this and very passionate about it.
All right. With all that being said, we're gonna get started and get into the little icebreaker, get our minds going. And the question of the day is, you just landed a $1 million NIL deal. What's the first thing you'll do with it? And there's no wrong answers. Would you save it? Would you spend it? Would you invest? Really think about it and, feel free to drop it in the chat or, turn on your mic and talk to us. We don't bite. You can speak up. But and we can even generalize this a little bit, even if it's not an NIL deal. Imagine you just receive $1 million out of nowhere. What are you doing with that? So yeah, please feel free to speak up, drop in the chat, talk about it. Okay, stocks. Okay. Mr. Jonathan Miller said he'll get into stocks. Okay. Miss
Oh no,
Catherine
I'm
said,
I'm laughing because that's like where a lot of times we deal with that of oh, okay, I got to buy a bunch of shoes.
oh
Um,
yeah. Okay.
the StockX.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
stop.
StockX.
I
X.
like
Yeah,
some of
I'm
these
with you.
answers
I'm
though.
with you.
Make an estimated payment. That's probably my favorite, and the high yield savings. Those are some good answers.
Oh yeah, those are smart answers, man. Real estate. Okay. We got some, okay. Got some good planners. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie, my initial answer, without thinking would probably be buy something expensive, you know. But hey, that's just me, you know. I gotta spend a little bit of it and then I'll start making money moves. But all jokes.
Hold on, hold on. We're getting good engagement in the chat.
Here we go.
read a couple of these out. We got high yield savings account. It's pretty
Mm.
smooth. I got making
Roth IRA,
estimated
very
tax
good.
payment, starting a business, very important.
Interesting.
We need more Black business
Nice.
owners.
Yeah.
Franchise investor in McDonald's.
Okay.
Okay, then
Okay.
Mickey D's,
He
yes
said, yeah, we got
sir.
Okay. Now we're getting some
Try and
good answers.
save 60% of it and start my mobile home business. I like that.
Emphasize on try and save. I get where you at, Taylor. I'm with you.
Hey, we trying, we young, Right there, yes
There
sir,
we
got
go.
to. And a new car, make sure to put that on the back end.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
50% is going to taxes, and with
Man.
the rest. Okay, I like that. I like that. I gotta say, for me, and obviously it's gonna sound a little bit sweeter because we didn't have time to think about it, and we the ones that created the question, of course. 10%, about a good 100K of it is definitely going towards a new car. I'm 6'6", and I'm Ford Fusion right now, so I need a little bit of more space.
Now
The next is
that
probably
reminds me
going
of something.
to the
That's
next is
like
probably
Shaq in
going
them Kia
to
commercials. You remember where Shaq
hey,
was in that small Kia?
Yeah.
and that's how I'm feeling on the daily in traffic. I'm
Oh yeah.
mad, man. I'm mad. Oh man, but that next bread is definitely going into a good little trip. So out of that 100K, I want to enjoy myself because I know I want to have a good time. But outside of that, mm, that next 30%, I'm gonna act like I never saw it. I'm gonna put it into probably a money market account or SP 500 because it's consistent. It's never gonna go down. Probably be a little bit more aggressive with 5 to 10% of that 30%, and then the rest, I'm establishing life, baby. Like I'm definitely get into some real estate. I feel like real estate is the number one way to be able to create wealth for yourself, long lasting, especially when you talk about your kids. So I'm gonna definitely get into some real estate. Definitely establish like emergency saving funds and make sure the family's good.
I think that's really good. I think great answers. I see everybody was engaged. Some good, interesting ideas. Patal mentioned, she mentioned, oh, yeah, Jonathan said, call your CPA. Yeah, that's smart. Getting a CPA is not a bad move to make. Yeah, a lot of good answers, a lot of good engagement, and that leads us into our next segue, which is real life experiences. So we presented three different scenarios, different perspectives for you to think about, and we'll start with the first one is early 20s starting off. So it's kind of like graduate, you just got out of college, you know you're trying to figure out where life is. You just landed your first full-time job. So what are your priorities? How are you going to manage your money, right? And feel free to drop in the chat. What do you think? How would you manage your money? I'm in that stage right now. You feel what I'm saying? I'm figuring it out still a little bit, but hey, I
Oh
got an
no.
idea of what I want to do. Christian, you want to speak a little bit on that?
Oh wait. Oh. I mean, we're definitely in that phase right now, man. I find that saving is probably going to be the biggest thing. Just trying to
Yeah.
establish myself. Um, I want an emergency savings set up. So, like, when I get into my career, that's going to be one of the first things that I'm trying to establish. Is getting that under my feet. So, if a rainy day does come, and praying that it doesn't, but um, I want to be able to be set for at least about 6 months. So that's what I really want to establish for myself just coming out. That's probably one of the biggest things for me, at least. And feel free to come
Absolutely.
off mute as well. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the locker room. We're all talking with each other.
Yeah.
I'm
I
glad
think
you
saving.
said, oh, sorry, my
No.
bad.
No. Go ahead, Taylor.
I'm glad you said it's a locker room because that's exactly how I was going to talk. When you go in the locker room and you just saying these issues out. But that scenario alone, when I read what the topic was, that's exactly the questions that came to my head because that's what I'm doing right now. Like I'm about to graduate in May, always been on full scholarship. I got some opportunities, but I'm thinking about when I have these opportunities, obviously I'm going to get paid, but what money do I have left over? A rainy day, something happened. I never really paid for any rent, any living, so it's been sweet. It's been
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah.
love coming back to my room. Oh, I love it. I always have something to fall back on, so it's always that fear of just not knowing, but it also moves fast. Like at the end of the day got to end. So just figuring all that out, like how I'm gonna live, car, transportation, new city, living on my own. So I'm really glad that y'all started with that.
It's real. It's real.
Absolutely. Oh, what's up, Tori? Tori in here. But yeah, no, I think that's a great thing to think about. It's like when you're in this new stage, and Taylor mentioned it, we've been on scholarships, so a lot of the stuff has been paid for, but once that's done, we gotta start paying real bills. You know what I'm saying? Life's real fast, so it's like you gotta measure out your priorities. And I think what Christian said is something kind of like a good point of focus, especially like just, starting life without getting stuff paid for is saving money. So that's kind of been a big thing for me as well. Does anybody have anything else to add on the first part when it's starting early 20s?
Anybody feeling that phase right now where you're just getting out of college
Man,
evaluating?
I wouldn't say I'm getting out of college. However, I would say that like I'm in the freshly entering college. So while like most of
Mm-hmm.
mm,
y'all were like everything is paid for on a scholarship, man, this second semester, I'm talking about I'm looking for a job like my life depend on it.
Yeah.
Like it's
yeah,
getting real wicked
Your
real
life
fast. And
does
then
depend on it.
literally, and then even seeing like how hard it is in the job market because it's like you could have so much. Like I feel like as a freshman, I feel like I have a pretty well developed resume. You feel me? I like to say that I've done things, I have certain accomplishments that would maybe put me a little higher. But
yeah.
it's tough. Every day is tough, man.
Hey, I feel you. But what I will say is you having the wherewithal to understand that you're in a tough position as a freshman, you're ahead of half of the people out here, brother. So trust and believe. Like all you gotta do is keep being consistent at this point because I remember when I was a freshman and I wasn't as financially literate as I am now. And I get that first Pell Grant. I'm like, oh man, I'm rich, and seeing my teammates go to the mall and ball out, thinking that we just got it all laid out, but that is not how it is. So you just understanding your position now puts you so much farther ahead. Trust and believe.
For sure.
But yeah, and then thinking about the next part, right? So you got a family with kids. You may not have kids right now, but just think you do. Okay, you and your spouse have kids. You got a mortgage. You're just getting a home. Okay, you got car payments coming up and everyday expenses that comes with that. How do you structure your budget? And when you think about this, right? Think about what's important at that age. We're talking about what, late 20s, early 30s. What are different things that you have to consider when getting that paycheck?
Also, some of the, older folks in the chat who happen to have some kids, we would love your insight on this topic as well.
Please spit some game. I'm always looking for some.
Kids are more expensive than you think.
I already think they expensive now.
Yeah, I'm saying I have enough trouble dealing with a dog, so I can imagine how much how expensive raising a child would be.
It's
Definitely.
extremely expensive. Well, one of them is sitting in front of me right now, and he went to San Diego State with Brad, and I had another one who went to Berkeley for his BA degree, then a MBA degree from Cornell. So it is highly expensive. That's why this meeting that you're having right now is so strategically important. Because if you prepare yourself financially, you can get it done. And I was able to get it done with no wife. It was
Man,
just me and my boy. So it's extremely important to have these types of meetings that you're having so that you can get some pointers on how best to get through all of this stuff because it's real life. And I can't wait to get to my part to talk.
oh yeah, we can't wait to. I know you got some good game to give everybody.
For sure.
But yeah, man, family with kids. Taylor said I wouldn't even know how to start. Me either.
Trust.
I didn't either.
Me either.
We all right there. We are all
Yeah.
right there.
But it's something good to think about, right? So, and then that leads to the next part, retirement age. Kind of what age do you really imagine yourself in retirement? And what financial moves do you think you should make? Oh, well, what we got some good stuff from Rodney before I finish. On the last day is like sit down and have a discussion with his wife to break down financial expenses. I think that's a great idea.
Like a
I
business
think
meeting.
I think having that conversation is really important. Um, it could help everybody be on the same page. And that could go into this next segment, what age do you imagine yourself retiring? And then what financial moves should you make now to ensure you have a comfortable retirement? What do y'all think? What do you think you should be doing now that could help you, have a comfortable retirement in the future?
I can attest to that.
Yes.
So I had a little internship with Northwestern Mutual,
Mm,
and it was working with other advisors, making sure everybody's straight, dealing with families, sitting down and talking through their expenses. And you would be surprised the lack of overall knowledge there is around retirement in general out here, and people who are really getting far down the road, like 45, 50, like those conversations are starting to be more realistic and more important to the everyday, and how there's just a lack of understanding, whether that be um, systematically, like it's two types of education you get: one that you get for yourself, and one that's given to you. And it's a lot of people don't choose to necessarily pursue retirement because pursue retirement education because that's not necessarily the most um, popular thing to do. But man, is it so important, man, because you have to take advantage of the compounding factor that is associated with a lot of these different retirement accounts that you can get involved with right now.
absolutely. I think that was great. Great input. Great thing to think about too, because like you mentioned, a lot of people don't really think about it or taught it. So,
I think that starting young is hard because it's a long way away and people don't realize it. But if you have the discipline to put something away every little bit, there was I don't know if it was $200 a week or $100 a week or whatever it is when you have small amounts over time build up. And it doesn't seem like it maybe the first few years, but then all of a sudden you start getting excited because there's $20,000, $30,000 sitting in this retirement account, or 50 or 100 or whatever it is. And you see the value of it, but it does take a while and a lot of discipline, and knowing that, in an emergency, you can always pull that money out. But buckets is what I usually talk to people about, is make sure you have a bucket for this, a bucket for that, and bucket that. And it's kind of how you have to start kind of planning out your financial life.
absolutely. That makes sense. Makes a lot of
Absolutely.
sense. All right. Anything else to add before we move on to the next section?
Catherine gave us a great little thing there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I was
noticed.
just about to say that.
Yeah,
I
talk about it.
appreciate you, Catherine.
Thank you so much. Y'all better save this. This is a good gem right here.
Yes, Lord.
The other thing is very important, and I don't know if you'll get into, is credit.
Yeah.
How you spend the money is important,
Okay.
and managing that and building your credit report. The most important thing for every student athlete, I will tell you, is when you leave college, you better make sure you've paid your rent. You better make sure you have paid your utilities, your phone bill, you returned your cable box or whatever it is, because I can't tell you how many professional athletes come to me with a 500 credit because they didn't pay that medical bill for $500 or $200. They didn't return the cable box, or they didn't pay the last bit of their rent.
Man,
It's good.
very
Establishing
good.
credit is important. Credit is very important. Very important.
Credit
And
is
you don't want
king.
to end up coming out of school just make sure you're on top of stuff, Pay your rent, return the cable box, and yeah, be on top of your finances when it comes to credit, because that's really important, especially, you know, when you transition out of getting stuff paid for as a student athlete. So great point. Thank you, Jonathan. That was really great. And then now, you know, we'll leave it to Mr. Dwight. You can, introduce yourself, let them know a little bit about you, and then we'll leave the rest to you, let you go into your part of the presentation.
It sounds good. People say it's a real pleasure to be here. In my case, I mean it because I enjoy trying to help the young people succeed. Just a tad bit about myself. I went to Tennessee State University, had a double major in both accounting and economics, and came out of college and really only had one job. I've had the last 40 years. I've had a firm that is a financial advisory firm, so I do this for a living. And my specialty has been for 40 years developing and putting together tax deferred compensation plans for business owners, successful business owners that would have a net worth of at least a couple of $1 million, as high as 20 million, $30 million. And part-time, I taught. The important thing for teaching for me is that the teaching is what got me most of my business. I taught it part-time at UCLA for about 10 years on a course on retirement plans, 401k plans, Roth. Someone said Roth. Roth wasn't around yet, but it came around. Roth 401k, defined benefit pension plans, tax deferred pension plans for wealthy people. That's just a different way of saying I help the very affluent high wage earner not pay taxes on his income. And one of the best ways to do that is setting up one of these pension plans or 401k plans. 401k is just one of the plans within a series of 401 plans, but someone has to set those up. They have to set up a legal trust to hold the assets, figure out what the contributions will be, and that's what I did. And I've been doing that now for 40 years, and I'm still doing it. Not as much as I did before, but I did it. And I've got a format I want to follow. Can you bring that up now, Josh, or someone? Yeah, there it is right there. I want to tell you a quick story. Oh, and by the way, I used to say this with my UCLA students. If any of you out there, the 24 people who are there, 23, if you have a question, unlike other people who taught, I would tell the students, interrupt me whenever you want, because it's important for me to answer your questions as you have them as I go along. Don't wait till the end. Interrupt me if you have to. But just a little bit about my teaching. UCLA was one, but I also taught a course to CPAs at the California CPA Society, a very complex course on retirement plans that I won't get into now. But I want to tell you a quick story. I had the luxury of working with about the largest law firm in the United States, which is Skadden, Arps, Slate, Meagher, Flom. I won't tell you the name, but I had an attorney in that firm who was a client of mine. He was making $1.1 million a year. No, he's making 11,000 a month, so it's a little bit more than that. Let's say over $1 million a year. And I had a physician at the Beverly Hills Hospital that's now defunct, but this physician was only making about $250 per year. The physician wound up with a net worth at retirement of somewhere around $12 million, making $250. The attorney was making let's say $1.5 million a year, wound up with a net worth of somewhere around $5 million in retirement. And the point is this: the attorney made almost 5 times as much as the physician. It is way more important in life not on how much you make, but on what you do with what you make. The attorney spent most of his money. This was an anesthesiologist in Beverly Hills. He saved most of his money. He invested in art. He invested through me and other things. So it's way more, the moral of this story is it's way more important in life to have a plan to save more so than it is how much you make. Making money is good now, don't get me wrong. But it's way more important on what you do with what you save as opposed to just how much you make. Well, just go through this outline. The first one is this. When you set goals, and you should set goals, and you should write down those goals, make them realistic. Make sure you can attain them. If you start out making $70,000 a year, don't plan on saving the whole 70. Don't even plan on saving 50. It's not realistic. Because when you set goals that are not realistic, you give up quick. And you say the hell with the whole thing. I used to have a Mercedes-Benz taped to my wall, seriously. And I wanted to get to a point where I had my office in Beverly Hills, not just Los Angeles, but in Beverly Hills. And I wanted to be able to get a Mercedes-Benz every other year. I'm not saying that's the way to that's the goal you should have. I was young. I wanted a Mercedes-Benz. So that's what I did. But guess what? I accomplished that. I got to a point where, in spite of trying to get both my boys through school, business went well. And I was able to get a Mercedes-Benz about every other year. And my son's sitting right here. So if I'm lying, he can bust me. But I'm not lying. So write down your goals, take pictures. It can be of a Mercedes-Benz, it can be of something else that makes more sense than my Mercedes-Benz. I'm not saying it made sense, but I wrote down my goals and took pictures of it and looked at them, and it did help me a lot. Set goals in 3 terms: short term, 5 years, medium term, 10 years, and age 65 goals. Assess all of your financial and non-financial resources, not just the cash you have on hand, but in letter B, right under A, your monthly net cash flow. Now, cash flow can mean different things to different people. To me, it's real simple. Take the income that you are making or that you intend to make, subtract the expenses that you have to spend money on, either your mortgage or your rent, your utility bills, etc. And use the number C. This is just a recommendation that I use, and from some of my clients that used it, it works very well. When you prepare a budget, use the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is extremely important, and it means this. From day one, when you get a job, live on 80% of the income, whatever it is they pay you. Just use 80%. Live on 80%, save 20 of every dollar you make. If you do this rule, and some of you will, some of you may not, but if you can do that rule alone, I don't care if you don't buy stocks, bonds, or make the right investments, you will get rich. If you save as simple as 20% of your income and spend the 80 on whatever you want, but save the 20. 10 of that 20 goes to short-term savings, 10 goes to long-term. You will get wealthy because 99% of the people can't do that or don't do that. I failed. I got back on track, but I failed some too. And if you fail, get back on it. But the 80-20 rule is a good rule to follow. No one will do 50%, I don't think, but 80-20 is doable. And if you have some questions for me to answer, go ahead. I use a Quicken type, I use Quicken. You can use Quicken or a Quicken type program to set this whole thing up. You can set up a budget in Quicken. You can review that budget, and you can use the checking account within Quicken to write your checks and record those checks, right all within Quicken. It is a highly, highly efficient tool to use. And if you don't use Quicken, I'm sure they have other programs to use, but I've been using Quicken for how long, Courtney? About the past 25, 30 years, and it's worked well. For short term, use a simple bank account. You don't have to get fancy because there is a need for short-term accounts that don't pay much interest because you may have to raid that account from time to time. And if you have to raid a short-term account, you don't want to have penalties against that. And that's what short-term bank accounts are for. They're for you to use. Medium term, you can use a Roth account or a Roth imitator account. And without going into too much detail, in a Roth account, you don't get a tax deduction for the contributions you make to either the Roth IRA or the Roth 401k, but you can take them out income tax free if it's a qualified distribution, which a qualified distribution is the funds have to be in the account for 5 years and you have to be age 59 and a half. However, there's a loophole in that. You can always take out your contributions tax-free and penalty-free, not the interest earned. It has to be a qualified distribution for all that. But you can always take out your contributions with no penalty or tax consequences. And why do I say use those types of accounts? You want to use 401k, you want to use Roth for a couple of good reasons. The biggest one is this: it's not the tax savings, it's forced savings. I am comfortably retired today. Well, I'm not retired because I still work, but I don't have to work. And one of the things I did is I had one of the insurance companies I use just take out commissions from my checks I used to get, because I haven't had a salary I've never had a salary really in 50 years almost. But they would take out a savings from a small amount from each commission check I got.
Excuse me, OG. You
ahead.
said you haven't had a salary in 50 years?
Right. I got out of college and I graduated #1 from the business school. They thought it was crazy because I got straight A's in accounting and economics. And I took one job and quit. And I set up this business after 1 year of being at this insurance company. And as my son's sitting right here, he knows I haven't had a job. And I went into business February 1st, 1975, before he was born. He was born 2 years later in 77. And I had an older son, and I went on and told my wife I thought that I could make it on my own, setting up my own financial advisory practice. And I had this real nice, successful white guy come and ask me to be his partner. I was shocked. I told him I would do it. My wife said, fine, go ahead and do it. And I just celebrated 50 years this month, first of this month. I haven't had a job, and he's lived in real nice homes in Baldwin Hills in LA and other places, and things have gone well. But I haven't had any salary in pretty much most all my adult working life. And I encourage others to look into being self-employed. If you do it right, it can work very well financially for you. It's worked extremely well for me. I'm living a good life right now in Miami Beach, the South Beach section of Miami Beach, and I'm having fun, big fun. And so yeah, no, I haven't had a paycheck from anybody in 50 years. It's worked out well.
I got a question for you, right?
Sure.
So that power in entrepreneurship and the potential that it has, right? It also comes with uncertainty. I know at times you didn't know where the next check was coming from, but you made it happen through this past 50 years. Can you talk about maybe some struggles that you had to face to get over that hump to be able to go out there on yourself? Because I mean, that takes a lot to be able to do. And just some of the things that if one of us thought about doing so, that we would need to consider, and something that we may not see before doing so.
Well, I am extremely happy you asked that question. It's a damn good question because I don't want to paint I don't want to paint the picture that that's an easy thing to do. I caught hell. I struggled through hell in the process. And I hate to say this, but it's the truth. For me, in spite of all those things that I went through, I thought the biggest thing that really got me through was attitude. The attitude was the biggest resource I had. I was just too stupid to quit because I faced adversity. When I first did this, I had a 6-year-old son. He's 56 now. No, he's 56. He was 50 years ago. And telling my wife I wanted to work I don't talk about having this perfect A score to brag about it. The fact of the matter is, I did extremely well in college, and even the professors thought I might have a problem in getting a job. I didn't, but they did because I was a school militant, so I was never the average acting individual. I was going around trying to do a whole bunch of things. I was listening to Malcolm X. I was trying to carry out things that Malcolm X was for. So, but to answer your question, there were a number of things I faced financially along the road. It was not simple at all. I was just too stupid to give up. I had a dream, and I felt that others I had met were doing well, being self-employed or having their own business, and I had to do it. I just would not accept the fact that I had to have a job. And I think, to tell you the truth, as dumb as it may sound, the attitude is what got me over the hump. I just wouldn't quit. And finally, about 22 years ago, I had been teaching these CPAs and pissed off that they weren't referring me business. And finally, they started doing just that. They started asking more questions. I just frankly knew more about the tax law as it pertained to 401 plans and IRAs than they did. They felt that, they started using me more. And it just got to the point where I became well known in Beverly Hills. And the strange thing is, by the time I moved, I didn't even have to look for business. I just wouldn't quit. It wasn't because I was so smart. I just wouldn't quit, and I wouldn't go away. And the people got to know me, got to like me. And by the way, this is an entirely white community that I was working in. So my friends from Chicago thought I was a fool and said, "You're going to Beverly Hills, man. There's no black people there." I said, "That's why I'm going. It's okay. It'll work out." And it did work out. So, and the moral of that story is, I mean, that's not for everybody, but for those who want it. And to answer your question, the best answer I can think of is that there was no one certain thing I was able to prepare for financially. The financials hit me hard. I did save what I could, but the biggest thing was attitude. I just would not quit. It was as simple as that. I was not going to work for someone else. I was going to work for myself. And I was just going to hang in there when it got rough. And each time it hung in there, I would go in the newspaper, look at an ad, and do something else that was regarding financial planning. And I would do it. A lot of it was insurance, some of it was investments, some was a combination of the two. But I would get it, and I would do it until my prospecting came around again, and it did, and ultimately it did. So it's a good question you asked, and I don't have a smart answer, but the best answer I can give you is that it was attitude that kept me in the game, and that has frankly given me a really good life even today. And of all the things I have said, and for the audience out there who is getting some of this and liking it, and even those of you who may not, pay attention a lot to the 80-20 rule. It will make you wealthy. It really will. If you can live on 80% of your check and save 20, 10 of that 20 is short term and 10 is long term, and then use these qualified plans. Let me tell you why you should use not just the Roth, but 401k and some of these other plans within the 401 series. Think of it this way. If you're saving money by yourself and you want to save $1,000 a year, just $1,000, That's you saving the $1,000. If let's say you're working a job and right now you just you can't be on your own. If you join a 401k plan, most employers will give you some kind of a match. So if you put in $1,000, they may put in $400. Think about that. Rather than you just saving $1,000 on your own, someone else is now giving you another $400 free. That's a 40% rate of return right there. Okay. Now, the second person giving you money is the federal government. I have spent 45, 50 years now advising very wealthy people on how not to pay taxes. That's why they set these plans up in the first place. And I'll tell you, all of them will do it. All of them will do it. And that's because, especially in California, that's about the highest tax state in the country. So they're paying 30, 40% of income taxes on their money. If they put, let's say, $1,000, in my case, I'm getting to put in $100,000, $200,000. In real life, they are. They're paying no tax on that. That's the government giving them $40,000, giving it to them. That's income tax deferral. You won't find a doctor in America. I know because I had the chief of staff of Cedars-Sinai, the chief of staff of Beverly Hills Hospital, the chief of staff of UCLA. I had them all as clients. And I will tell you now, you won't find a physician without a pension plan. They make too much money. And they've been told about pension plans like 401k plans, and they're going to put money in them. It's just a question of who gets to them first and who has the most knowledge. What helped me out the most, and again, I'm not trying to brag about it, is I just read more and knew more than my competition. Doesn't matter if you're white, black, blue, green, or yellow. If you know your craft, the people will buy. I learned the craft. I learned it. And my son's sitting here, he knows most of these people I did, almost all of them were white folks. They didn't care about my color. They cared about my knowledge. And I gave it to them. And they bought. And I made about as much money as they did. Yeah, I wound up making as much money as a self-employed physician. Because I had heard in this business, in my business, you will make about the same income as the people that you serve and you sell to. I had a lot of physician clientele. I wound up making about what they made. So life's good. Life's been good. A lot of struggle. That's why what makes your question so good. But I really believe that for most people who confront this type of struggle, attitude is what will get them out of it. It won't be money. It's going to be attitude. It's going to be, what kind of person are you? Are you going to quit this thing or are you going to hang in there? I wanted to quit. It's like pledging Omega Psi Phi. I wanted to, and I pledged this fraternity in days when it was hard. You couldn't walk in. I went over to 1970. You had to pay a big price. I wanted to quit several times, but I didn't quit. So I made Omega Psi Phi. And I look at the job of being self-employed just as in pledging. In pledging, there's nothing wrong with wanting to quit. Just don't do it. It's a natural thing to want to quit, but don't do it. Hang in there and get it done. And that's the story.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was a great answer, by the way. Great question, Christian, but appreciate that insight. I mean, it's really important. That mindset is everything. Before we continue with questions, I want to go to book referral real quick because we have the pleasure of having Mr. Jonathan Miller here. He wrote the book, Wait, Don't Sign That Contract. I know he has a couple minutes. He's going to have to go, but if you're still here, please feel free to speak on your book for a little bit or let the people know about you.
Yeah, I probably ran into Dwight because I was in Beverly Hills and I'm on my 38th year. So we may have ran into each other. I moved to Arizona about 30 years ago. But yeah, I had an office. I was
Where you in?
I was at the Luckman building in Doheny, right near Doheny and Sunset. 9200 Sunset.
No, Kate Mantalini's down the street, the
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yep. Kate Mantalini's, and there's a really good Thai restaurant across the street. I
Right,
also work, yeah.
right.
And I actually, you probably have run into a lot of physicians that I know at Cedars as well.
Terrific.
So about so since that time when I started at Arthur Young, and right after that, I started working with athletes, and I tell people, when I was my first job, Magic Johnson was a client. He was still playing basketball, as a form of reference of how long I've been doing this. And my business partner, Nigel, is also on the call. And we've been working with athletes for long. I've had this book in my head for 20 years, and I finally was able to figure out how to get it on paper. And it's really just kind of the stories and things. And, it's as encompassing as my experience. Dwight had some stuff in there that I didn't even think of. So again, one of the things that he said, which is most important, is read. I know some of you don't read. That's fine. Just ask ChatGPT. How much do I need to put away to have $1 million a year when I'm 50? And I did that while we were on the call. And the answer is $1,270 in $1 million of today's money. That's it. So simple things like that we actually had to do by hand, or use fancy calculators. Now you can just ask ChatGPT and you'll get the answer in 20 seconds. So wrote the book, and really I give the book away. The purpose is it just needs to get out there. Kids need this knowledge. And now with NIL, I wrote another book, which is don't sign that NIL contract, because we were running into some of the same problems, and now we're running into them with 17 and 18-year-olds. And so my goal, a lot like Dwight, is we want to give this knowledge out, because I don't want to see kids end up in a situation where they've earned money and they have nothing to show for it. And it's hard there's a lot of peer pressure. I think kids are a lot smarter now. The fact that you guys are all on this call, you're already miles ahead of those that are not on the call. So you are already taking the first step toward making sure that you don't end up a statistic. Because most of the problems occur with student athletes, and I'll leave you with these two things. It occurs after they retire, because they are not prepared. It takes 3 years to transition out of being an athlete to being a non-athlete. The same way it takes 3 years to transition from working to retirement, the same way it takes 3 years to transition from being in the military to being a civilian. The first year is, I'm trying to get back into it. The second year is, I better figure out what to do. And the third year is implementing that plan. So you guys are already ahead of the game by looking at, what am I going to do when I'm done playing, or when I'm done doing what I do? I may work till I'm 40 being a professional athlete, or I may end up, when I'm done with college, with, okay, now I have to use my skills to go figure it out. There's a great book that I reference also, and it's called Fit for Business. Taylor Pack wrote it. She is she was a soccer player out of Stanford. And it's really why businesses should hire athletes. But you guys need to read it, because it will tell you what you've experienced, what you have gone through, what you have learned as a student athlete that you don't realize, that makes you a valuable employee. You're driven, goal-oriented, follow the rules, give me a game plan, and I'm going to execute it. And those are the best employees to have from a business owner standpoint. So I congratulate everybody for being on the call and being a part of this. I appreciate, I think Brad invited me, and Christian and Josh, you guys are doing a great job. I got to run. My cousin's in town. We're going to dinner.
Yes.
But I want to say thank you. My business partner, Nigel's on here. So if you have questions, you can bother him.
Real quick, can you say the name of that book again?
It's Taylor Pack, P-A-K, and it's Fit for Business, I think is the name. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. Hey, thank you again.
And let me know if anybody says they want the book. Just get their address. We'll send them a book.
By the way,
Yes,
Ron, I test Senior, I got in here late.
hey, how you doing, Mr. Ross?
I'm doing
It's good
good.
to see you. Glad you made it.
Likewise.
Thank you all.
Ron Artistic.
Yeah, so now that's really just to speak a little bit on this book, I put some things that stood out to me in his book, Wait, Don't Sign That Contract. He talks about networking and branding, having a good mentor, though that's really important. Media miscommunications, investing with no risk. It goes into detail about that. And then athlete transition, which is something big for, all the people attending here, all the students. Um, and there's two things from that book. All right, cool. We got some people interested in the book. I have two things that I took away from the book that I just want every student athlete to kind of leave with. And it's the first one goes along with networking. It's make a list of who you know today that can help you tomorrow, because networking, and that's going to take you a long way, especially outside. Once you're done playing your sport, that's what helped me. I didn't really have. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to get there. But the people I knew, the connections I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Brad at the BSA Summit in California, and then it led to me meeting Mr. Dwight, and then Jonathan, and then Mr. Ron Artest Sr. So you
Helped
never
me
know
too.
how. Say again.
I said it helped me a lot too. I'm glad you said that. The networking.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like networking, branding. See the value of your brand and use that as a student athlete. You know what I'm saying? You already have value as a student athlete. Now you got to use it and build those connections. And then the last thing is to list 5 things that you learned during your athletic career, or most of just being a student athlete, things like tangible that you could really apply outside of sports, and that's more so, yeah. So those are 2 things I got, questions that are asked in the book that I think, worth reflecting on. So, but yeah, that really concludes our deal. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to chime in. Ask either Dwight, me, Christian.
Excuse me, OG, Mr. Dwight Harris.
Yes, sir.
So when you said that you worked in the Beverly Hills area, so where all would you say that you've been like across your career, and then what parts of your career do you think that what part of your career do you think you could take and then probably place it into something else?
And there's something else?
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Oh, I think I could. That's an interesting and it's a good question. Number one, if I was younger, I think I could take it and place it in almost anything else, because I found out in life that attitude will take you much further than anything else. I'm serious about that. I know I'm giving about the same answer I gave before, but if you look at what made Michael Jordan great, I think it was his attitude about his work ethic. If you look at Kobe Bryant, I think what made him great was his attitude about his work ethic. And all the greats, for the most part, their skills weren't that much different.
LeBron
They
James as
made their
well?
skills better because of their attitude. So I think my attitude would set the tone for me to be excellent in. I'll tell you about a field of I could have been very good at buying and selling businesses, because I started consulting people on doing that. I found ways to. I got into pension plans so much I found a way to sell a person could sell their own business to a 401k plan. Very few people know how to do that. Very few people would say I'm crazy for even bringing it up. But I could I've shown people how they can take their own business and sell it to a 401k plan, take and operate in a completely and totally tax-free environment. And so I could take that theory and I could specialize in buying and selling businesses or consulting on it and wipe up the field, because very few people are doing it. That's one thing I thought about doing. I could have done it. I just had a lot of success with what I'm doing, so I stayed with that. But that's one thing I thought about I could do, and I could do. I could have been a stockbroker. That would work well because I had to use investments in these pension plans. I mostly used conservative investments, but I could have used riskier ones, and I learned about all of them, so I could have done that. So I could have worked in a bank. One of the beautiful things about being a financial advisor is because of the specialty of taxes that I focused on. I could have done anything, I think. My degree was in accounting. And in my last year at Tennessee State, I was lucky enough to, this was an accident. I functioned as the chief accountant. So to better answer your question, when you major in accounting, that literally is the language of business. And you know almost everything you need to know. I shouldn't say everything you need to know, but you have the best foundation, I would say, to know mostly all about business. When I sold these business owners, one of the things that helped me out a lot is I educated CPAs. Well, I had to know income statements. I had to know balance sheets. I had to know the differences between the two. And I had to know what I did because I focused on people, rich people who own businesses. I had to show them the impact of what I was doing, what that impact was on their balance sheet and or their income statement. So I could have done that. So it's a range of almost anything you can name within the financial industry that I could have done because of my background in both accounting and economics. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Almost perfectly.
Okay, good. Anything else?
I got another question for you, White, because I mean we got to be able to ask a man who's had over 40 plus years in the industry a lot of questions, you know. And with your time that you spent in this industry as a whole, working with these highly affluent people, what do you feel like are some common mistakes that they usually make that when you sit down in a meeting, you're like, oh, it's another guy like this? Because I'm pretty sure that you see a lot of different consistent traits within a lot of clients that you work with.
I do. And what has amazed me the most, and most all of them they've been have a net worth of easily over $1 million, some over 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 10. The mistake that they make is simple ones in that they have not done, a lot of them, a lot of planning. I mean, I know this will sound strange. You think that a guy that has a net worth of $3 million, of $5 million is smart, which all of them have been, and that they've done a lot of planning. Guess what? About a good 80% have not. So I learned that when I was introduced to them, usually I had taught the CPA about some things within the 401 series of plans. And he said, call John Doe, my client, because he needs to know this. So I would go and see John Doe. And I learned over the years, because of my experience with the affluent taxpayer, start at the basics. Don't assume he knows anything. And guess what? 80% didn't. What they did know is they knew their business. They didn't know, I shouldn't say nothing else, that would be unfair, but they didn't have a lot of knowledge about things outside of their business. They were too busy focused on trying to make their business successful. And they did that. But after that, they went home and forgot about stuff in life, unless someone like me came along. And that was a common theme. And to be able to use real simple terms for them. The simpler I got, the better business got. I mean, frankly, the more I networked, the better business got. But after that, the best thing I learned was to relate to people in terms they could understand. One example is a lot of the stuff that I did was in the life insurance contract. And I tried not to use life insurance contract because people got the wrong impression of it. They thought it was just something that they bought if they died. And I would get them to focus on, no, you are buying dollars for future delivery. What do you mean? Well, that's what you're doing. You are putting monies up to have monies delivered to you in the future or your family. Now, if you live, the money can come back to you in the future. And if you pass away, it'll go to them. Then they would say, wait a minute, I'm buying this for my family. If I live, it won't I said, no, there's cash involved in coming back to you. And these people didn't know that. These were millionaires who just didn't understand that. And I would let them understand. Well, how expensive is this? Well, it's not expensive at all. You take, roughly speaking, however much you want to be. I'm giving you just an example. You take however much you want to get back for either you or your family, you're gonna put up, roughly speaking, between 3 and 4% of the money. I said, this is a phenomenal deal. It's not just good, it's phenomenal because you're gonna put up only 3 to 4% of what you want. If you want a dollar delivered, you put in 4 cents, 3 cents. That's it. You're buying a dollar for 3 cents. That's what's happening. And as time goes on, that 3 cents builds up in a bank account with the insurance company and earns you interest. And guess what? It's tax-free, tax deferred. So, and I'm not going to go through any more of this, but the point is, what helped me be more successful is to take people who didn't understand my business because they didn't want to understand my business. They wanted to understand what my business could do for them and get them to understand how the process went. And when it did that, it didn't matter how big the dollars were that I used, to the extent that they understood me, and I made sure that they did the transaction. So that's the biggest thing I saw, was the biggest common denominator is the people were wealthy, but they lacked the knowledge they needed to know to do the transaction. And guess what? The CPA was almost in the same boat. Now, the CPA knew more than them, but there was also the same thing with the CPA. I literally got CPAs in Beverly Hills and LA to give me business based on going into their offices at lunch and carrying on what I call a lunch and learn. I would teach them changes in the law that came about in the 401k plans. I swear to God, I'm telling you the truth. And there was a Beverly Hills, Hollywood CPA discussion group. And each time a law changed, I was like the first one to get that damn law and read that thing and know it inside and out. And I would go to the CPA discussion group, and it was actually held in, I think, Westwood. And I would tell them all about the changes in the law. Guess how many CPAs in the audience knew? None. None. It's smart people, don't get me wrong. Very smart people. But they didn't know the field I was in, of 401k plans. I asked the president of UCLA. I was on the part of the faculty that interviewed new coming students for this program that they had. UCLA had a program on personal financial planning. I taught in that program, and I taught the course on retirement plans. So they would ask me to interview incoming students that might come to UCLA to do it. So the president was there one night, and I was trying to tell the students what a hell of a field this was that I was in. So I said, we've got the president of UCLA here. So let me ask you a question, sir. He didn't know me, I didn't know him. He just knew I taught there. I said, how much do you really understand about your own 401k plan? And you know what he said? This was the president of UCLA. He said, not a damn thing. He used that, he said, not a damn thing. And I turned to the class and said, you can see the opportunities because most people are smart, and this gentleman is smart. He's the president of this university, but he doesn't understand how 401k plans work. And that common denominator was present for almost every wealthy business owner I met. Because to make a living that I felt I wanted to have a hell of a lifestyle, you had to talk to certain people with certain bucks in their pocket. So I set my limits. You had to have a net worth of at least a couple of $1 million, and ideally over 5. And in Beverly Hills, California, the whole LA area in the west end of town, you can find a whole lot of them. There's a whole lot of folks walking around worth more than $5 million. You'd be shocked at the number who is. Matter of fact, and my son's right here, I showed him a book of pension plans in the LA area. of pension plans or 401k plans, small businesses, no more than 50 employees, of guys who had more than 2 or 3 million in their plan. Am I right or wrong, Courtney? He's sitting right here. So, but the knowledge that they have of some of the subjects we're discussing is, I won't say non-existent, but it's not where you would think it would be. They don't know as much as you think they know.
So,
Did that answer your question, sir?
Perfectly.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir. Hey, just Gavin.
yeah, sorry, Mr. Dwight, sorry to interject you, but I wanted to ask, considering everything you just said, I wanted to ask like on a personal level. So for me, I'm a student at UT Austin right now. I'm a freshman, but I'm majoring in accounting in the business school. And I wanted to ask you, like, do you feel like you gained, like for you, it seems like your biggest like valuable asset was like your attitude and your knowledge. Do you feel like the knowledge that you gained came from your classes? Or do you feel like you supplemented that and really got that knowledge from like your outside research, like the stuff you did outside of class?
Great question. I can answer you real fast. I got most all the knowledge from what I read outside the class, without a doubt. The I joined various associations in Los Angeles, and I would go to these study groups. Because don't forget, and I'm not trying to make this racial, but I had made my determination that I was not going to let race be a factor in who I prospected with, which means for the most part, I was going where the money was, and that was with mostly white business owners. And I felt that in my case, I needed to have the knowledge. If I had the knowledge, they would accept me. Most of them would. And so I went out and made sure, to answer your question, I read, excuse my French, I read my ass off. I read everything in the tax code that was there. I made subscriptions. I bought subscriptions to tax periodicals when I couldn't even afford them. I still bought them. I read those so that when things came up and the laws changed, and luckily for me, in this country, and I told my son this, and it's the truth. If you're in my business, uh, Congress, in their infinite wisdom to raise $1 and spend two, will change the tax laws almost every other year without fail. And they did. And as they changed them, I made sure I read the changes in the law. And I would read them before anybody else. And I wasn't no genius. I had to read them 2 or 3 times because I'd read them the first time and didn't quite understand what the hell are they talking about. And I would have to go over it again and go over it again. And then all of a sudden I knew it. And then all of a sudden I started knowing it well. And by the way, the teaching at UCLA, that's where I learned the most. Because by teaching it, you're going over the same information yourself. And when you're going over it yourself, you learn the most. So I can easily answer your question by saying reading information on my own was the biggest way I gained the knowledge. Because most people won't do it. And all you have to do to be very successful in this country anyway is do what most people don't want to do. Seriously, if you do the opposite of what most people will not do, you'll be successful. Most people would not want to read like that. And I did. And it helped a whole hell of a lot. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Great. You're welcome.
Man, that first of all, I appreciate everybody's willingness to engage. I appreciate you, Dwight, and the infinite knowledge base that you have been able to provide today. You have truly been a pleasure, and I'm sure that a lot of people have gained a lot of wisdom that they'll be able to implement starting tonight, just from hearing you talk. So we really want to appreciate you. And guys, I appreciate you coming to this locker room talk. We really want to be able to grow upon these types of talks and be able to create these types of spaces within the BSA Summit coming more soon. Just know there are 2 more left. Please tell your friends. We got one next week, and the week after that. And I know the rest of the fellows are going to kill it, so we want to be there. But with that being said, we're going to be having to go. I know we went over a little bit, but I hope that everybody gained what they need to tonight. So appreciate you guys' presence, and I hope that y'all have a blessed one.
Thank you all. And one last thing, Dr. Brad, thank you for chiming in, helping us with the presentation, connecting
Yes,
us
sir.
with Dwight and Jonathan and Ron Artest Sr. Really appreciate your help. You've been a great mentor and connection for me and Christian. So
yes, sir. Dr. Brad, OG.
OG. But yeah.
Okay. You
Dr.
guys be
Sutton?
well, and God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you, sir.
Okay.